Want to know the #1 pitfall leaders fall into when planning their team events? If you want your team leaving your next event thinking, wow, that was so good, then this, first and foremost, is the most important thing I recommend you do. I'm 𝗤𝗂𝗯𝗲𝗶𝗶𝗯𝗲, the founder of the Ultimate Offsite, and this episode is the first in a series of team building tips, all with associated pitfalls to avoid. And today we are talking about the first. So leaning on some inspiration from Simon Sinek's philosophy of starting with why, let's dive in. So the top tip here is why. It's about getting clear on the purpose of your event. What specific outcomes do you want to achieve from this particular group of people coming together at this particular time? What do you want to be different afterwards? Now, I know that this sounds really obvious, and I promise you, most leaders I speak to think that they've actually got this one nailed. But when I speak to event experts, facilitators, speakers, trainers, people like me, this is the one that they consistently tell me is missing from most leaders' events. See, having a clear purpose allows you then to align the 5 most important factors when defining your event. I call them the 5 W's. Why, who, when, where, what. Why is so much more than just an inspiring concept. It should become, your purpose should become your decision-making lens. It should guide and filter every single decision you make about the event, from the venues to the activity. Every choice is made better and easier when you actually know why you are gathering. 𝗂𝗶𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗶, who's the author of one of my favourite ever books, The Art of Gathering, she says to let purpose, once you've defined it, to become your bouncer. Who's let in? What's let in? What's not let in? She also has some great advice around the concept of a category not being a purpose. So take a wedding, for instance. This summer my sister got married in Greece. Beautiful island of Paros. Now, weddings are full of norms and expectations, and it could be really easy to slip into those sorts of things. A hen do or a stag do, the great examples. Traditionally, women. Well, my sister and her now husband, they didn't want to do that kind of thing. Instead, that they decided that they wanted to offer anyone who wanted to do something the day before the wedding. They could pick from 2 different activities. We had some yoga for those who wanted more kind of super relaxed thing, and we had paddle for those who wanted something a little bit more active. Now, for them, they didn't want the gender divide or the traditional fanfare. And I think the same is true of our team events. When we put on an away day or something, there is an expectation of how things will look. If we say a conference, if you think of a conference or a strategy day, they have a certain expectation attached to it. But if that doesn't necessarily align to what your intention is, then actually how do you get to recreate it? So to help you get thinking, I want to offer some questions to help you consider when you're planning your event. Number 1, what underlying issues or opportunities are you actually looking to address within your event? What do you want your team to think and feel about the event? How does this align with your broader team goals? Everything else that's going on for you. If we could only achieve one thing from this event, what would have been that most important objective? So have a think about those questions. The other thing I'd recommend is to create a why statement for your event. Something that you can come back to time and time again when you're making decisions, when you're planning. Now, this statement could look something like this. There's 3 components to it. The purpose of this, insert your offsite name, is to insert what you'd like to get out of the coming together. So that why the whole thing is important and the impacts of it. I'd like to invite you, when you're doing that, when you're creating that statement, to be specific. How do you make it meaningful, unique, personal to this event? Here's some examples. The first one, purpose of this year's annual retreat is to effectively integrate new team members into the team so we can fast track the norming forming stages by building trust through a deeper understanding of each other. And you see the 3 components there? Another example could be something like, The purpose of this leadership retreat is to align as a leadership team on our priorities for the year so that we can address head-on conflicting priorities and instead present as a clear and united, aligned strategic plan to our individual teams. Okay, we'll do one more. The purpose of this quarterly planning session is to review our progress against our plan, align on our priorities, including what we won't focus on, so that we can be less reactive and more strategic, doing less but better, ensuring each team member has clarity on what's important, who's responsible for what, and where we can support each other. What you'll hopefully notice is they are quite specific. They're linking, this is exactly what we're specifically looking to do in this particular time. They're not trying to do everything. By doing all of this, it basically allows us to not fall into one of the biggest pitfalls that we see, which is an absence of purpose. Because once you're clear on the purpose of your event, you can then please let it become that lens through which you make all the decisions for your event. As Simon Sinek says, start with why. In future episodes, I'm going to dive much deeper into this because it sounds really simple, but it actually can be sneakily challenging to execute. But for now, focus on what's the one thing you want to achieve from this specific group of people coming together at this specific time. Get super clear on that. Because a truly effective offsite, the kind that I know that you want, is not a random group of things or people called together, nor is it time to fill. I can't tell you the number of times I've answered the call when someone said, Chloe, I've got this hole in my team and team event agenda, or I've got a team event coming up, can you come and do something, a training or a talk about X? And they didn't really care necessarily what it was just a time fill. And I've actually stopped saying yes to those opportunities unless they really truly align to what it is that that individual leader is trying to get from that. And that's really where I help now, is helping them get clear. So even if you feel like you do this already, maybe just think about how you can get even clearer, even more specific for your next event. This video was number one in a series of what will be 10, because there are actually 10 pitfalls that many leaders fall into. Now, you might not have time to go watch all 10, so if you want a sneaky fast track option to try and work out where else you might be falling down, then I highly recommend there is a link to take an assessment. It takes 2-3 minutes, and you will understand exactly which pitfalls of team event planning you are falling into and how effective your offsites actually are. I would recommend that as a next step. I would love to see you around in the next video. If you found this at all helpful, please like, subscribe, share. I cannot tell you how helpful that is for a growing channel. With that, we'll see you next time.